Good evening. I'm Craig Carroll, member number 1230. Welcome to the world-famous Adventures Club. Over the past 101 years, through wars, depressions, famine, pandemics, we have met nearly every Thursday since 1921. And we meet to celebrate those who venture far off the beaten path. It is in this spirit, this evening, that I introduce to you an amazing man, a warrior, an explorer, who defines the spirit of adventure. Please welcome Daniel Stinson, call sign Santa6.
Thank
you. So you are not a particularly easy person to get in touch with. That may shock you that after 40 years of hunting terrorists, it was hard to find you.
Well, I can't believe that.
But everybody seems to know your name. Everybody knows Santa6. And Santa, I just want to make sure, Santa because you look like Santa Claus, and 6 because that's your location, correct?
Well, Santa6, yeah, because I'm fat and I got a big white beard.
Hey, we like to call it big man. Big men.
I identify as a skinny man myself. But so when we were in Afghanistan this last time, during last year, or 2021, they had said, hey, you know, this is Santa, and they gave me Santa as the call sign, and then 6 is because I was the command element, if you will, so that's a command call sign, Santa6, and then Santa6 actual is because if they want to call back and talk to me, then they ask for Santa6 actually me. It's funny how that works.
I got to think the enemy was a little like, you know, what's this Santa6 shit?
So this was I only had that during the evacuation aspect. So I didn't really want to throw my name out there a whole lot right away. So the evacuation community, the NGOs and stuff like that, Brad Parks was one of them, like trying to find Santa6. Who is this Santa6 guy? And all I had was a ridiculous picture of me on my Signal chat. And so people couldn't really see my name or who I was. It was just Santa6.
Most of the pictures I saw of you, like your face is covered, or you're, like, you know, you see this huge body, but there's no face. And I saw a couple of documentary interviews. You're completely Greeked out, you know. So you mentioned a quote to me early on when we spoke, a Vincent van Gogh quote, and I'd love to hear the quote and what it means to you.
Okay, so just recently, my wife loves Vincent van Gogh, so we went to the Vincent van Gogh exhibit up in DC. It was fantastic. So one of the things he said was, I'm not an adventurer by choice, but by fate. In 40 years of my life and traveling all the different places, I've been around the world a couple times doing things, not always the funnest things, but I have found that fate has driven me everywhere that I've been. I thought it was my choice. I thought every these places I went was my choice. And the Marine Corps, obviously, it wasn't my choice. It's kind of like, there, you go there. But after that, the different jobs I had, the different places I traveled to, again, I thought it was my choice, but it all led me to one spot. And that one spot, eventually, the fate brought me to Afghanistan back in August of 2021, back in Kabul, in leading people and helping people come out.
Let's save that, because I really want to kind of get a little into your backstory, because there's a lot to talk about in 2021. That was a busy week from what I read. So you grew up in Boston, right? You grew up in Boston, 8 brothers and sisters, right? Big family, right?
Yeah, correct. We're Irish Catholic, so we had no TV, and so we had a lot of kids. So there were the 5 boys first, and I was the 3rd of the boys, and then my mother, God bless her, she had 3 daughters, which was her saving grace for her and my father, because we were horrible children.
I can't imagine that you were a difficult child.
We were hellions, to say the least. And my father was a 100% disabled veteran from the Korean War, highly decorated, great guy, but all shot up. So he was in the VA hospital quite often, and would have to go up almost yearly for most of my childhood to go up and say goodbye to my father, because they thought he'd be dying that year from the surgery or the mix of bloods they gave him or one thing or another. And this is how we grew up. It was hard. We had some good hardship times, but we built a very tight, close-knit family because of that.
Tell me about the 5 fingers, because I'm fascinated by this story that you shared with me about your mother one night.
So I said, I'm Irish Catholic. I'm actually, my mom's first generation American. And like I said, we lived a hard life. We were on the other side of the tracks. And we didn't have a lot of money because my father was in the hospital. But we had a lot of love and we had a lot of kindness from my mom and dad. My father was in the hospital this one winter, and we went up, took the bus up to the combat zone in Boston. If anybody's familiar with Boston, it's a great place to put a hospital. So we went up there on the bus, came back home, and we didn't have enough money for fuel oil, so the house was extremely cold. My mom made dinner, and because she has a flair for the dramatic, she shut off all the lights, make it a thing. We got the fireplace going. And my mom had the boys, my older brothers, bring the dining room table in, and we sawed the legs off the dining room table and made it, now it's a coffee table. Because we needed the legs and the chairs to burn in the fireplace so that we have some heat in the house. And we're sitting around there, firelights flickering on our faces, my mom's sitting there.
And you're how old, like you personally?
Oh, geez, 8.
8, okay.
8 years old. And my mom says, she's looking at the boys, and she holds up her hands. She goes, you boys are like this. You're like a hand. You're like the 5 fingers on a hand. Individually, you can be strong and you can get something done, but you can also be bent. You can also be a little weaker. But together, as a fist, you're invincible. Together as a family, you're amazing. And you can never be beaten. So that was impactful for me. It's even impactful now. I told my bride of that story, and she passed it on to my mom, said, hey, Dan told me about this. And my mom's like, wow, I remember that. It was quite an impactful night for us. It was great.
Yeah, as a parent yourself, you could really appreciate what that must be like to have to be the cheerleader in a very difficult situation.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And it's stuck with me, and it's actually helped me throughout my life, that one lesson my mom taught me. We're a pretty tight crew.
How do you think about it throughout your life? Let's talk about that for a second, because I think this is really significant. You know, the strength of the 5 fingers, or the teamwork, because you talk a lot about teamwork in our dialogue.
So there is brothers, and that's my brotherhood, the 5 brothers. And then throughout my life, we've developed like-minded individuals who became our friends or became our family. Share the same goals, share the same values, and having that, for me, in my entire life, has just strengthened me forever. So I learned early on, there's brothers and there's others, and that's it in my life. So what I learned, there's a code that we live by, and some may take offense to, but I don't particularly care about a lot of things. There's what I call a man code, right? It's what men, and it's not specifically for men, but it's the man code for us. And for me, when I grew up, it's I mean what I say and I say what I mean. And I was always taught that you have to do that. And the biggest thing is, if I stick my hand out, we don't teach kids to do this now. Stand up when you meet someone. Put your hand out, have a firm handshake, look the person in the eye. And you don't have to do one of those, like, Hulk Hogan, crush your hand. That's rather ridiculous. But a firm handshake, look them in the eye, and being honest and be a man. I think that's important.
I agree. It's certainly a lesson I try to teach my son on a regular basis. I'm a little more old school than the average bear, though, I would imagine. You went through some pretty tough stuff in your teen years, and we could never touch on it all, but I'd really like to talk about gladiator training, because this is such a unique concept.
Yeah, when you say that, it sounds like that airplane movie, You like to watch gladiator movies, Johnny? I'm like,
well, no. From what I heard, it was quite different than that.
Yeah, it certainly was. There were no oiled down men rolling around in the sand. I had 2 older brothers. The oldest brother, he was like the gentle giant, or is the gentle giant. And the next brother, he was a fighter. And his thoughts were, I have to teach my younger brother to be tough and to fight and harden up. Okay, cool, because if you don't, this is the way I learned, if you don't get out there and fight, if you don't beat life, then life's going to beat you. So just get out there. So gladiator training was, he was in a street gang. This was the 60s, 70s, okay, so sharks and stuff like that. So there was his street gang, patrolling around the streets, and I'd be with my buddies on their banana seat bicycles with the handlebars, riding around, doing our thing. My brother and his crew would find someone for me to fight. And that's it. It would be someone younger, someone older, someone from another city, someone from another crew, one of my best friends that I grew up with and went to school with. It doesn't matter to my brother. He'd just grab them, he'd pull them. Example, we'd be down the park, and there's big fields, you know, double baseball fields and a soccer pitch, if you will, out there. And we'd be by the swings riding our bikes, and I'd see the crowd come in, they'd hit the gate, and it'd flow in like water and then spread out in this big circle. And I'm like, fuck, here we go. And two of the guys would break free and they'd come on over and grab me, pull me off my bike. Very little ceremony there, and drag me in and like, hey, you got to go fight. And I'm like, I don't want to fight. And they're like, too bad, you're fighting. And they'd bring me in, the crowd would part, I'd go into the middle, and in the middle would be my brother and this person I'm supposed to fight. And he'd say, okay, you're going to fight this guy. He says he can beat you. Never met him. Or, like I said, my best friend, right? I went to school with. I'm like, I'm not going to fight him. And we'd have this little tit-tat go back. One in particular, Tim says, he called Mom a whore. I'm a mother's boy. Okay, I love my mom. I said, he didn't call Mom a whore. Don't say that, that's wrong. And this kid picked up on it. He goes, your mom's a whore. I'm like, okay, that's it. You know, I wasn't gonna fight you, but that is wicked stupid. He goes, well, I can beat you. I'm like, not now. You just call my mom a whore, this isn't gonna happen. And so we'd fight. And that was a particularly violent event. So what that taught me, though, was to be hard, because it was extremely hard. It was toughened me up. Right or wrong, it was what it was. And it taught me a valuable lesson for the rest of my life, too. So that was my gladiator training.
And to be ready for action. I mean, you're in a business where things are unpredictable. Not like me, like I go to work 9 to 5, but your 9 to 5 is a bit different.
Yeah. Like September to May. Yeah.
So you became a motorcyclist, and eventually a one percenter, which back then was a slightly different term than one percenters are now.
I'm going to have a drink on this one. So,
and from what I hear, there's a lot of fighting in motorcycle clubs. I've never been in one, but I hear it's not a lot of hugging.
No, actually, there's a lot of love because it's a huge brotherhood. So I did start out working in a motorcycle shop and work with some guys, and there was a very large motorcycle club up in Massachusetts that the guys would come by and I'd see them, and I admired the brotherhood they shared and what they had, and the bikes were fantastic. And that was kind of like, oh man, what a thrill. I want to ride a bike like that. I want to go wicked fast, ride my motorcycle, and long hair flying and do the whole thing. So I grew my hair long, and again, it's the 70s, right? So you can do that, or you can have long hair like that's one right over there, which is much nicer than mine ever was. So I became a motorcycle enthusiast. I built my first motorcycle when I was 16. It was a 72 Super Glide, Harley Davidson, 1200. Built it from parts, put it together, and then I started riding with a group of guys, and eventually I became a member of a motorcycle club. Not a gang, a club, and it was a 1% motorcycle club, yes. So when you said it's a little different back then, I guess there's maybe a minimum of 3 types of 1% in America. So the 1% of the very, very, very well-to-do, 1% of the population, 1% of the wealth in America, and then the other 1% of the military, the people who join the military. 1% of the American population joins the military, signs their name on the line to give up their life, if need be. Outstanding. And the other 1% were us, the 1%ers. And the 1%ers were a brotherhood, or are a brotherhood, depending on what club you're in, you are a brotherhood of individuals who love the life that they live the life they love. And that's it. We don't take crap from anybody. We're not going to give you any crap. We just do our thing. People will say 1%ers, oh, they're a criminal element. Okay, more so than the Moose. More so than a police department, let's say Memphis. More so than this, more so than that. The activities and the attitudes of one individual or a couple of individuals within a group does not define the group. One can't just change human nature and say, okay, because those 4 guys or 5 guys in that one group of motorcycle enthusiasts or a motorcycle club paint the entire thing the same color. It's not. That's kind of prejudice, and I don't believe in prejudice.
That kind of journey was both good and bad, from what I understand. And you shared with me I don't really know how to put it, but kind of a pretty dark place you went with in your life, and I know this is a difficult question, but if you could, just because I think it's germane to the entire story of your life, you're sort of like what you went through in your 20s and the thoughts you had.
Yep. So we partied pretty hard. It was the 70s, and we had a really good time. And there was lots of alcohol involved, and there was a modicum of illegal substance involved here and there.
I believe you used the word Caligula at one point, which
Okay, so yeah.
which I was like, I saw the movie, I was like, that looked like a lot of fun to me.
Yeah, so I don't think in Caligula they fought a lot though, but most of our parties involved partying and Caligula-esque events and fighting. We just had a grand old time and we had a blast. So yeah, this one at night, and like there on that back picture that was there, that one there, the guy sitting next to me, I'm the idiot on the far left, far right, as you're seeing that, with a really bright headlight, and the guy sitting next to me is my brother, Wizard, who's here tonight. He flew out all the way from the East Coast to be here because that's what brotherhood's about, right?
Part of the Five Fingers.
Exactly. So, yes, this one evening, it was wintertime. We seemed to do all the crazy stuff in the wintertime, at least notable crazy stuff, because we can't ride our motorcycles that month. So I was partying in this Caligula-esque type event with my older brother. And what I realized was the majority of the guys my age, well, a little older.
You're in your 20s now, right?
I was in my 20s, yeah. Majority of guys my age were still like, I don't know, playing tag football or something. But I hung out with an older group, like 5, 6 years older. And those guys, the guys from my club, other clubs, were going to prison, dying, getting in motorcycle accidents and losing limbs, or melting their brains to the point where they were shells of men. And I thought, there's got to be something more for me. Is this what I'm going to be in my life? Is this what I'm going to do? And I had this moment of, I won't even call it clarity. And I walked through the big crowd at the party, pushing people aside. And there was, there's a couple making out over here. There's a couple of guys swinging over here. There's people smoking cannabis over there. And I'm like, okay. And I went down to the basement. I had a false wall where I kept some firearms. I popped the wall open and I grabbed a .38 revolver. And I cocked the hammer back and I stuck it in my mouth. I could still taste hops number 9 every time I think of this.
It's like a gun cleaner, right?
Yeah. I could still taste it. And the next thing I know, I'm in my Catholic church, my family church, 3 miles away from my house. My hair was matted to my body. My beard was matted to my body from the snow and the wet. And I had my flannel shirt rolled up, my thermal underneath, and I'm sitting there at first pew, and I'm looking at the altar, and I'm looking at Jesus on the cross. I'm like, how did I get here? And I thought, well, maybe I actually killed myself, and he was so pissed he sent me here. And like, you're going to sit here and pray until I let you go somewhere else. I'm like, wow, this is bizarre. So I got up, I blessed myself, genuflected, went out the front door, and there's snow everywhere. It's 3 miles from my home. I don't even know how I got there. And I walk out, I'm standing there on the sidewalk. Now I'm getting cold because I'm soaking wet. Still snowing, 2 feet of snow. I'm like, what now, stupid? A truck pulls up. There's a lifted pickup truck. The door opens up, and a friend of my brother's says, Danny, what are you doing? Get in the truck. I've been looking all over for you. I'm like, oh. I get in. I'm like, seriously, you been looking for me? He goes, no, I haven't actually. Because the weirdest thing, I was sitting home with my old lady, and I'm having a drink, and I'm watching TV, and something made me get up and go outside and told me to drive around. It brought me right here, and there you are. So I guess I'm supposed to pick you up. Wow. Told him what happened, and he said to me, if you continue to swim in mud puddles, you're going to continue to be dirty. Get out of it. Change your life. Dropped me off at my house. He left. A sidebar to that is he passed of cancer a few years later. A great, phenomenal man. I really loved him. I went in, I told my brother what happened. I said, get everybody out of the house. So we threw people out of the house, both metaphorically and physically. And I brought him down to the basement because I wanted to see, did I really try to shoot myself in the face? And I went downstairs, and it was sitting right there with the hammer back. I had dropped it on a cot that I would sleep in. Well, I put the hammer down, unloaded it, put it away, and I thought, man, this is bizarre. I have to change my life. So I did a 180 and just left that lifestyle for a while.
And now the Marine Corps, right? That was the next?
Correct.
So take me through the Marine Corps.
Oh, geez. So I was trying to leave that lifestyle, but you end up, if one doesn't change their environment, then they're never going to be able to change it. If you don't get out of that puddle of mud, stop swimming with the same thing, you're going to stay the same. So I was...
What did they say, trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity or something like that?
Correct. Yeah. And I was certainly insane at that point. So it was time to move on. So I called the Marine Corps and I said, you got 4 days for me to go in the Marine Corps. And the recruiter, obviously, they have a quota, right? Like, well, you can go in next summer. I'm like, you don't understand. I'll go to another station. You got 4 days. He goes, I'll be right there. Where are you? And he drove down, signed me up, and I said, I want infantry, because they were offering $3,000 sign-on bonus to infantry. I'm like, I could use that cash. You know, that'd be pretty cool. I'd buy another bike. Signed up. I went to boot camp, Parris Island, because there is only one Marine Corps boot camp, and that's Parris Island. For all the Marines out here. And while I was there, apparently my language ability, I spoke fluent Spanish, French, and Latin.
You already, by the time you went into the Marines, spoke?
Yes.
Wow, that's unusual for a poor kid from Boston to speak Latin and French.
Well, Latin, I'm Catholic, and I was an altar boy.
I guess,
right?
true.
So you got to speak it.
I know plenty of Catholics that can't speak Latin, by the way,
Yeah.
so let's...
Well, I dug it, you know, and that's one of the things I did, is every time I got involved in something, I got involved in it. And I had to know about the culture. I had to know about everything I could. Yeah. Spanish and French, my Spanish teacher was hot. And she was also an heiress to Gibbs Oil, and I thought,
nice.
I can do this, you know.
You were doing extracurricular work for her.
Well, no, I didn't. Her husband wouldn't let me, but I really loved Senora Gibbs, and she was a fantastic Spanish teacher. And then my French teacher, he was really cool. Cool guy. So I love the languages, Spanish and French. So when I got to boot camp, they didn't test me for languages so much, but they do a defense language aptitude battery test, and it tests your ability to learn languages. And apparently I was good. So this one gunnery sergeant, God bless him, hook, line, and sinker, he told me all sorts of things to get me to sign away my infantry and sign into the intelligence community. And
did you know what you were signing up for, or did it just...
Did I know? I knew what he said to me.
Yeah.
Well, which is not necessarily what I signed up for. In fact, when I got to language school, I begged and pleaded to send me back to the infantry because these intelligence people were really weird. So they sent me to learn Chinese Mandarin. I'm 6'4", blonde at the time, you know, lighter hair, and blue eyes. I'm certainly not, unless you go to Mongolia, I'm really not Chinese. I don't look Chinese.
You're certainly not going to fit in with the culture.
Negative ghostwriter. So I'm like, what the hell? Can you give me like Russian? Give me a Slavic language. Give me something, you know? Nope, Chinese, because the Marine Corps knows better. So they do. They sent me there, and I did Chinese for a year. Met a woman, married her, had a couple kids with her. Marine Corps sent us off to Asia for a while. That marriage didn't work out. The kids did, and I got my kids. But the marriage didn't work out because I traveled a lot. Back to Hawaii, which is a fantastic duty station, and I became a plank owner of a unit within the Marine Corps that Commandant Al Gray started. It was called the Radio Reconnaissance. And we were low-level tactical signals intelligence guys trained in reconnaissance field. And we did all sorts of stupid things for them. Languages, et cetera, et cetera. And that's when I picked up a couple more languages. Ilocano, which is Tagalog, dialect of Tagalog.
Philippines, right? That's
Philippines, yeah.
Well, sorry, that's what they speak in the Philippines.
President Marcos was being overthrown at the time, so they wanted some people to go there, so they sent us to that school.
You also don't look very Philippine, but I think you...
No, I did not. And that
Filipino, I think it would be the term.
Filipino, not Filipina. Although I will identify with whatever Filipino I could be just to go there. It's a great place. I love the Philippines. It's Filipino or Tagalog, Ilocano, and then I went back language school, Russian, finally, and then intermediate Spanish and intermediate French, which helped me in a couple countries that I traveled in afterwards. They helped me from getting myself killed.
Like in Africa?
Africa was one, Haiti,
Yeah.
because French and Creole, Haitian Creole were fairly close, and I picked up Creole while I was there, and that saved me. That was a good one.
I suspect that you and I have traveled in a lot of different circles. Like, I think the countries you went to are countries that I don't go to countries that are at war or terrorists are trying to kill me. I just try to stay away from them. And I bet if I looked at your 40-year history, which I know I can't, it's probably not the same places around France that I was traveling in Spain, you know?
Yeah, probably not. If one put third world crap hole in front of a country, I was there.
Yeah, I think you told me at one point you were in like 30 different U.S. shitholes with pipe-hitting MFers, and I thought, this is a badass.
Yeah, and that's, so I was in the Marine Corps. I was in the Marine Corps until I did 12 years active duty, and then signed up for 3 years reserve, because that was pretty cool, because they let me do whatever I wanted to do, and I could still travel. And in '94, I went to work for the U.S. government as a contractor, international police mounted force, and we went to Haiti, which is fine. We invaded Haiti. We occupied Haiti and hung out there, and that was a lot of fun. And stayed there for a year. Great experiences there for another time. And then I went home for about 2 weeks to see my children. My parents were helping me take care of my children as a single dad. And then they asked me to go back overseas. I went to Europe. I went to Croatia and Bosnia. And I was a State Department liaison officer working over there for all contracting. Stayed there a year. And then I said, you know what? Done. Again, I was almost killed there by the mob. So I was like, I gotta go home. I gotta see my children. This is too much for me. The guy I worked for was this retired Special Forces colonel, Army colonel. He had...
This is Colonel Bob?
Colonel Bob.
Colonel Bob.
Yep, great guy. 3 Silver Stars, served in Vietnam. Real calm guy, beautiful guy. He actually was a joint awardee of the Nobel Peace Prize for his work in Sinai.
Wow, that's huge.
Yep, working with the UN. And that was neat. And Colonel Bob said to me, I told him I'm leaving. He goes, well, you can go back and work for us in the States. I'm like, negative, I'm going home. I'm done with this. I'm done with war zones. I just want to go home. And he said, you know, Dan, for guys like you and I, there will always be work because there will always be war. I'll call you. I'm like, do not call me. Just lose my number, man. And that was 1997.
I think that's what you said to me the first time I called you. Lose my number.
Yeah, I didn't know you were.
So I want to kind of switch gears a little, and this is something I'm really fascinated by. That the nature of a fight or gunfire is everybody's running away, but you run towards it. And I'm just interested in, like, is it your Marine training? Is it your core need to protect? Like, is it just something that happens? Like, when you hear gunfire, like you've talked about this, that you just run at it. Like, what's that drive? I'm trying to understand that. Like, what's going through your head?
You mentioned a level of insanity, and that could probably be part of it. The other thing is, I felt I have to do something. I still feel that. I've got to do something for people, to people in an environment. I'd never be one to shy away from things, although my brother would get me in tons of fights. What I learned from that was, don't shy away. No matter what the challenge is, I have to go after it, right? So whether it be running to the sound of gunfire or running to a crisis or contingency, Hurricane Katrina, I brought a bunch of guys down there. No matter where it was, I have to go there. So I actually literally have ran to the sound of gunfire, sometimes stupidly, but it's what you do. What I think I'm supposed to do. That's why I was made, that's why I'm here. I'm supposed to be a protector. I'm supposed to be a defender, and that's what I do.
So September 11th, 2001, you're at home. You are, I'm sure, shocked like everybody else. Like, what kind of take me through the next few weeks after September 11th? I mean, you must have felt like your phone was about to start ringing.
I was actually in Boston. I had been doing some stuff in Boston, and September 10th, my oldest brother still lives up in that area. I was supposed to fly out 9/11, go back down to D.C. area. but we decided to party, so I knew I was going to miss that flight. So I changed it to the 13th. We were having coffee, and that's the picture we saw on TV. The second plane hit the tower. And yes, I had a pager, Sky pager at the time. And that went off within 20 minutes. And they're like, get back to DC. And I'm like, they're not flying planes. And we can't be on the road. So it took a day or two, and I rented a car, drove back down. And now how can I get involved? So I was doing some stuff. I was an independent contractor for the DoD and for the CIA. And I traveled around the world and I trained people. Now I'm wondering, how can I really get involved in this? I didn't fully understand. And my phone rang. I pick it up, and it's Bob. And he goes, hey, how you doing? I'm like, jeez. He goes, you know who this is? I'm like, yeah, I told you to lose my number. He goes, no, you're going to like this one. And he tells me about what he's doing. And he asked me if I would like a job. So I took a job with Bob, Colonel Bob, and some really great men. And I was a operations chief, or chief of operations for this group of guys. And they were all from the higher tier levels of the U.S. military. And our job was to go and support the Department of Defense in the global war on terror. So wherever it was in the world we had to go, that's what we did. And it wasn't nothing fancy or, Jason Bourne-ish. It was more like, we're just here to support you.
So you're going to Afghanistan, clearly. I mean, that's...
Eventually, yeah, like, that was in, I went to work spring 2002. And of course, besides the rest of the world being on fire, Afghanistan was a big place to go. So yeah, I took another friend of mine, another team guy, retired guy from Delta. We went to Afghanistan to set up and help our customer. Well, we weren't going to be on a base. We were going to go out and live out in town because I really can't do logistic support from a base, right? I just can't. Besides, if you are anywhere with the military and they leave the base, they get shot at and blown up. And I'm allergic to that. So I just didn't want anything to do with getting shot or blown up.
Me too. I'm totally allergic to being shot or blown up.
Yeah, it eventually didn't help. I still had those events, but my intent was to stay away from the military as much as possible and do my job. Cool. So we moved out in town, had a really great place, and we did a lot of cool stuff, helping guys best we could. While I was there, okay, you show up, and I do not speak, of all the languages, Dari, Pashto, Farsi. I don't. And at that point, I'm like, I need someone right now. So we went to a place called ATA. It's the training academy for Karzai security details. So they had some friends of ours from the military, former military guys were there training, and they had some great interpreters. And I went over and I asked, who's your best? Give me their books. So I read them, all their resumes and stuff. And we focused on this one guy, kid, actually, young man, 19, 20 years old when we hired him. Amazing young man, very smart, very quick-witted, street smart. He had a great background story. His father was a colonel in the Afghan army fighting the Mujahideen. And this young man told me a story about when his dad's compound was attacked. He's loading it like 8 years old. He's loading magazines with AK rounds and grabbing RPGs and bringing them to his dad and the fighters to defend against them. 8 years old, badass. So I'm like, I need this guy. So I hired him, came on board, and he became more than just an interpreter, because I didn't need an interpreter. I don't need a voice box. I need someone who's human but can also understand. He cussed. He would make Navy SEALs blush. He cussed so well. Very well trained in that aspect by SF and SEALs and stuff. And he became, throughout the entire time we were there, not just an interpreter, but my brother.
And what was his name?
Aziz.
Aziz. And his full name is?
Azizullah Aziz.
Okay.
So.
And did you know right away when you met him, like, this is my guy? Like, I'm really interested in what you look for, aside from language skills and the ability to read a street. But is it sort of an inane, like, just like you run to gunfire, does he run to gunfire as well? And how do you determine that when you're interviewing him? Yeah. I've never interviewed somebody to run to gunfire, so.
Yeah. So we actually had hired one Terp, and he lasted like a day. And I was like, this kid's got to go. And I went back. I said, that kid sucks. You should fire him. give me somebody else. And they gave me Aziz. I'm like, cool. And we talked. Now I'm really serious because they gave me a piece of crap the first time. So now I want to assault a guy. So I talked to him. I found out. I heard his background. I heard about how he actually got in a fist fight with the Taliban because he was teaching girls and boys English and stuff like that when the Taliban had occupied Afghanistan.
Yep.
Punched the Taliban in the face and then took off. He ended up, I don't want to steal your story, he ends up in Dubai, right, working for someone there. The war happens. A bunch of his friends say, hey, we're going to help with the Americans. Are you coming? And Aziz says, I made a commitment to this Spanish family. I can ask them. And I'm like, you made a commitment so you wouldn't leave. He goes, yeah. I'm like, this is the guy I want. Because this is what I believe in. If you make a commitment, no matter how difficult it is, because he wanted to go back to his family, how difficult, he goes, I made a commitment, I have to be here.
So it's moral fiber, right?
Yes.
Is that, okay. That's because that's what it feels like. At the end of the day, it's about he's going to be there when the shit hits the fan to watch your back.
It's this again.
Yeah, I got it.
Right? Finding the same type of people, the same brotherhood. And he did. He got me in some crazy situations. Indeed, almost got me killed a couple of times. But the very first trip we take with him, we got to buy some vehicles, right? Because I don't like donkeys, and I'm not going to ride a bicycle. So
You're kind of big for a donkey. You know, I pity the donkey that has to carry you or me around Afghanistan.
And what I found was when people die, they go to purgatory, and purgatory is actually a donkey in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
That's what I've
I love it.
So I'm like, hey, Aziz, we're going to go buy these vehicles. He talks to some guys, introduce us. Hey, we got these vehicles, go inspect them, right? I'm like, all right, cool. So we get in the vehicle. I'm in the passenger seat. My partner, the guy from Delta, he's driving. Aziz in the back. We're in our man jammies, and all we had were pistols. Our guns are folded up, long guns, and put in a bag. We're driving. We hit this one village, and there's a lot of military-age males in this village. As we're driving, they are hard glaring at us. I'm like, But this guy in the back seat, he's not saying anything alerting, but I'm like, well, this isn't cool. And I see AKs, I see PKMs, see people really hating me. I'm like, through the village. I'm like, man, that just didn't feel right. You know, like the electricity just drains out of you. Like, wow, that sucked. We did our thing, good to go. We turn around. The only road back was through that village. Never follow the same route, but that's what we did. So we're driving through the village. There are more military-age males, RPGs, PKMs, multiple on the roofs, on the sides. I'm like, this is going to wicked suck. Today I die.
I believe they call it the fatal funnel, right? You're in essentially a fatal funnel.
Yeah, I think anytime people should pretty much feel funnel. In my experience. So, but yeah, it was not looking good. But we make it through, and as we get through, Aziz leans back in his seat and goes, brothers, I didn't think we'd make it through that one. I'm like, what? He goes, that was a Taliban village. And the driver, Alex, he looks at me like, you idiot. And then he looks at Aziz, he goes, you ever do that to us again? You're the first guy I'm going to shoot. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, no. You're the second guy I'm going to shoot. I'm like, what? How can my day get any worse?
All you needed was like a baby on board sign on the back going back and forth.
Yeah, caution, new driver. Terrorist-free zone. That'd be rather nice. They didn't have those. I'm sure they got them here in the state, but yeah. So yeah, that was Aziz, and that was the middle of a guy. He was great, and became my brother, became part of this, and he eventually became like a warlord. He was awesome.
Tell me about dark humor and battlefield humor and the need to compartmentalize what you've seen, to use humor to compartmentalize it.
So a lot of shitty things happen overseas in those situations, right? You can see friends die, you can see children be hurt, you can see so many different things that the average person doesn't see, and it can be very impactful and add to what PTS or what have you, stress. So one can take dark humor. The military does it all the time. We did it a lot. And the dark humor for us was a way to just laugh through it. Something like that story I just told. For me, that's kind of dark humor. When it happened, it was butt puckering. That night, it was still a little butt puckering. And then, but the next day, it was funny. And then with each telling and each year that goes by, it's even freaking funnier. And there's a bunch of stories like that where I was almost killed, or I got blown up, or this happened, or that happened. And I tell the story, and I tell it, usually I tell it within the same group of guys that I've worked with, and we get it, and we all laugh. I've told some of the stories to citizen civilians before, and they do one of these.
It's where pulling their children closer, you know?
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, well, thanks. It was nice meeting you. Out the door, but it's just, we use that dark humor to get over the stress, to get over some of the terrible things that we have seen or experienced or done.
I wonder if the Taliban have the same dark humor about you. Like, can you believe when Santa6, that guy came through our town?
Yeah.
Probably not.
I really don't care about it.
So now you're in Afghanistan, and help me with the timeline, till about 2015, is that correct? You're working?
So, for me, it was 2002 up until 2005. I was up in what they call RC East, if you will, so all the way up from Jalalabad and all that area down to coast or so. We didn't go much further than that. And then I went back in 2006 until 2007. I spent a year in Helmand province, RC South and West, from Herat all the way down. And by that time, my company, we were building base camps. We built FOB wire, leatherneck tombstone, airports, runways, and did some other stuff too, transportation. And again, funny stories. You ever see a rock crusher? Construction rock crusher.
Yeah.
Flipping thing is huge. Hangs off the sides of a tractor trailer. I had to escort one from Shaman all the way to Camp Bastion in Helmand province. It goes 5 miles an hour. It is the biggest target that the Taliban has ever frickin' seen. So I got 250 fighters to go with me. And the drive to Shaman from Bastion wasn't bad. We only lost a couple guys, a couple fights. But driving back at 5 miles an hour, it was like one of those old cowboy Indian movies. We just fought the entire fucking time from Shaman all the way to Helmand province. Every vehicle was shot up. We lost a percentage of our guys. But we got the rock crusher there, and it worked, and that's cool. Mission accomplished.
And you came home.
I did.
So but you did not. You were not working with Aziz on a regular basis at this point, right? Or because at a certain point you were disconnected from him for a while.
Yeah, because he was up north.
Yeah.
And so I'd fly up and see Aziz. We'd go have dinner and stuff and hang out. Because we stayed in touch. But since he lived up there and his family was up there, he just stayed up in that region. And I worked with some other folks.
Plus, you shared with me that there's. Given the work that you do, there's a level of concern about your interactions with foreign nationals, whether they were your interpreter at one point or not. It's maybe you can kind of talk about whatever you're comfortable talking about.
Sure. So the work I did, it was classified contracts, and that's pretty much all I can say about that. Just classified contracts, and that's what the government does. So it could be classified contracts as I bought this glass. Classified contract, I bought a nuclear bomb. It's classified contract, doesn't really matter. I never bought a nuclear bomb, by the way, just throw that out there. So because one has a clearance, close and continual contact with a foreign national is not a really good thing. And it doesn't really matter if that foreign national saved your life, that you lived with them, ate with them, drank Black Russians with them. That doesn't really matter. The government is like, yeah, but now you're here, you can't talk to them. Like, seriously? Okay, whatever. So you can't, and if you do, then you got to say, I talked to Aziz and report it. All right, cool.
And you have to report your communications like every month, right? There's some sort of...
When you have a communication with them, when you talk to them, a significant discussion or something, they just want to know. I guess in case a guy gets bad, because not for nothing in Afghanistan, some of the Afghans that were working for us ended up flipping and becoming Taliban. We had that in our own group of guys that work for us.
Yeah, a number of CIA contractors were murdered at one point with some sort of bomb. I'm sure you know a lot more about that than I do from reading the New York Times.
yes, some people got killed down the coast. It was a tragic day for the U.S. Government and the intelligence community.
So you weren't in touch with him, and what I'm trying to get to is around, if I'm getting the timeline right, it was sort of mid-2015, and he wanted, is it called an SIV?
The Special Immigrant Visa?
Yeah. Can you maybe explain kind of what he wanted? And
Yeah, sure. So the Special Immigrant Visa was a thing that the State Department has, totally ineffective way to try and get people, our allies who fought with us, back here. And it's ineffective in this aspect. 2015, we're filling out this paperwork for Aziz, and you've got to give names of the contract, where they worked. It was a classified contract. You want me to give you the name of the contract number? Yeah, it was a classified contract. What he did, what they did, and then one writes letters of recommendation and gets so-and-so to write a letter, et cetera. So Aziz had sent it, asked for help from me and from one of our other team guys, Chad. And he's like, hey, can you help me? And Chad's like, hey, forward it on to me. What can you do for this? Because I was the chief of operations at the time. Okay, let's go through this process. 2015, fill out the paperwork. 2015, submitted to the State Department, everything we did. 2021, he's still denied. They denied him continually.
years.
6 years. That guy couldn't get out of Afghanistan with his family. 6 years. He fought for us. 6 years he supported us. In a classified program. He was polygraphed multiple times, vetted by us, and they're like, yeah, I don't think so.
How shamed are you by something like that? I mean, this must be a personal affront to you on a certain level.
The moral injury that I think myself and a lot of veterans or a lot of people who work over there, the moral injury that we suffer is intense. And here's why. Guys in the special operations community, guys in the military, they go overseas or in the intelligence community, what have you. You go overseas and you make a bond with people. You bring them into this, right? They're your family. And the only way you can actively work in a country like that is to make that bond and get people on your side. And you're like, hey man, I promised this, I promised that. And they become tight with you. And we make promises because we're told, hey, we're gonna take care of this guy. So we make these promises, right, to our allies, the guy who's right with me, gunning and running. And then when it comes to it, the government goes, yeah, we were only kidding. Remember that? Look them in the eye, shake their hand.
Yeah.
Man, mean what I say what I mean. So they let us down. And they let us down in the worst way. And then when they tried to fix it, if you will, it was such a botched, flipping deal. There's a lot of great people in the State Department, or Department of State, that I worked with. Fantastic people. I just don't know the upper echelons and why they effed it up so badly. State Department doesn't do NEOs, non-combatant evacuation operations. They should stay out of it, and they should just focus on the other stuff they do, like, I don't know, throwing cool parties and shit. And doing that diplomatic stuff that is wicked important, but we're not diplomats. Let the military do non-combatant operations. Example, Taliban comes in, they take over Kabul, they're blowing up cell towers. The State Department's method of notifying the people who are worthy to go to the airport, which they don't allow the US military outside the airport because they gave protection of the airport to the Taliban. Yeah, let's think that one through. We've been fighting them for 20 years. Hey, why don't you guys protect us? Oh, by the way, here's a list of all the SIV applicants that you need to let through. Oh, really? That's wonderful. So they give the Taliban full control. They lock the military in something the size of that table, and they say, do your job. Oh, by the way, let's send an email to all the SIV applicants. An email says, Dear Aziz, this is from the State Department, go to gate Y. So Aziz goes, oh, and he tells his cousins, and if you haven't noticed or you don't know any Afghans, they got cousins, man. Every one of them is related. This is like amazing. Like Aziz, can we get to the airport? Oh, my cousin works there. Can we get, oh, my cousin. How many cousins do you have? This is like, you're bigger than Catholics. So they share that information with all the other Afghans. Thousands and thousands of Afghans go to the gate, get saved. And the State Department goes, oh, this is out of control. Shut the gate. Email. Go to gate B. And the Afghans go, gate B! And they're like, run over to gate B, and no one gets in. or the people that get in are the people that don't belong in there. It was a complete fustercluck. Sorry I rambled on that one, but it means a lot to me because the moral injury and the fact that we're still not helping the ones, it's just wrong.
Well, kind of let's get into it a little bit, what's going on, because it's 2021.
Yeah.
It's clear that Kabul is falling much faster than anybody thought. I don't know, maybe you had a better inclination, but clearly the U.S. government was not prepared for how fast Afghanistan fell. It's quite obvious that your friends are going to be slain. I mean, is that incorrect? Is that a correct statement?
That is a correct statement. Some were already killed, and Aziz was being hunted by the Taliban.
And I imagine he's like calling you and freaking out. Maybe you can kind of set the stage a little of what sort of drove this this need to do what, how 13 or 14 or 15 people, however many it was, how 15, this small group of people did what the State Department and the U.S. government couldn't do. I'm like completely fascinated by this.
Yeah, so my one goal in beginning of spring, May of 2021, was to get Aziz out. That was it. I got to get Aziz, his wife, and his 6 children out. He is a Catholic. And to get them out and get them to America and get them safe any way I can. So I came up with 3 quick courses of action. First course of action, the safest, least risk, good chance of success for me. My COA 1 was get a office open for my company in Dubai. Hire Aziz as the business manager, fly him over with a business visa, and he stays there. A friend of mine's a partner in an international law firm, and he goes, yeah, I'll have my staff in Dubai work on getting him visas, come to the United States. I'm like, man, that is awesome. COA 1 handled. All right. There's some other things like finances, connections, right? The tempo of how I have to get them on. The second COA was I knew a filmmaker. And I said, dude, could you help me with this? What if I did a documentary of the fall of Kabul? You give me a film crew. You can keep all that crap. I just need you as a cover for action, cover for status. We're going to go over and do a documentary. Aziz has cousins in the palace. Okay, give me some appointments. Let's talk to Ghani. Let's talk to whoever we have to. Let them film it. And I'll go, you know what? I need to use his family as interpreters while we process the film. I'm flying them to Dubai. That was a little riskier because I didn't know if I could get his small children out, his wife out. That doesn't make sense, but we were going to try it.
And what was the term you used for that, a cover something?
Oh, cover for status and cover for action. So why am I there?
Yeah.
And can I get the job done?
Yeah.
Right, so it's kind of like lying. I don't like lying, but I lie professionally because that's my job, but I won't lie to anybody else any other time. And then my third course of action was the highest risk and the least possibility of total success. And that was I knew some guys that would fight with me and would go get Aziz. And I was like, you know what? If I have the money, I can fly over to Sharjah and I can lease a Russian AN-124. I can get the guns because I know some people have weapons and stuff. And we'll just fly our ass into Afghanistan. Boom, land, and we will forcefully take Aziz and his family, put them on the plane, fight our way all the way to the airfield, take off, get over a somewhat friendly country, and declare an in-flight emergency, land, get put in prison. And then my international lawyer will try and get us out. But at least he'll be out of Afghanistan.
What could go wrong with that plan?
Inside, I was actually hoping for that one because that'd be a wicked cool adventure.
Talk about running to gunfire. That's like, wow, you know.
Yeah, that's a neat one, you know. So as things started happening, a really good brother of mine named Joe Robert, he has a really different relationship with the royal family in the United Arab Emirates. Well, I wanted to get Aziz a visa, so I'm like, hey, can you help me out? And he goes, yeah, sure, let me make a call. And he calls someone in the ministries and like, hey, can we get a visa? Sure, we can get a visa. We're rolling into June. Stevie Wonder could see that Afghanistan was going to fall, right?
Like any day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know what anybody else in the administration was thinking, but they were wearing blinders that year. Everybody could see what was going to happen. Aziz was telling me what was going to happen. I'm like, oh, geez, brother, okay, we'll get this. Let's see if I can get a visa for him. Well, the United Arab Emirates, like Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, everybody was like, we do not want an influx of Afghans evacuating, leaving like they did in the 90s when the Taliban took over at that point in time. So they shut off all visas. No more visas. We're trying really hard. So that plane's kind of going to crap. As we're working that, I'm thinking, okay, we're going to go. I got to get finances, right? How am I going to pay for this shit?
And I'm curious, like, no disrespect, but I hear the CIA doesn't really pay particularly well. So
I wouldn't know.
renting Russian transport vehicles cannot be cheap. I mean, this is not, you're not going to go get it for $80 an hour or something like that. I mean, you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars in fuel and crews and it's a military operation, guns and men. I mean, this is not, you've got to be talking 6 figures to evacuate in a situation like this, I would think.
Yeah, and the thing I liked about these pilots, we used them a lot in Afghanistan, they're just nuts. Complete nuts. Their aircraft were awesome for that type of terrain, and they just didn't care. The pilots, the crew, they were just hilarious. So yeah, it would cost some money. So how do I come up with this money? I'm not a wealthy young man.
And how much did you need, by the way?
I estimated I'd need about $150,000 for each one of those codes to get Aziz and his family out.
Hard to run a GoFundMe campaign in your business as well.
Yeah, I'm a Luddite when it comes to working with technology, so I'm like, I couldn't do a GoFundMe. I don't even know what the hell that means. So I needed money. How am I going to get money? So I turned to, oh, she left me. I turned to my wife, and we were taking a HELOC out, and she had to explain that.
A home equity line of
credit. And I'm like, a HELOC. I don't know what that is. So we figured we have a small farm in Northern Virginia. It's a nice place. We paid into it for a while, so I could get about 400 grand in this HELOC. And we're going to do some repairs to the house and fix things up and modernize it. And I was really excited about it. She was excited about it. And I went in, I'm like, hey, baby, this is a big ask. But can I take $100,000 from our personal finances from the farm? And can I please go save Aziz?
And did she immediately like take your temperature and say, you've really lost your mind here, so, you know?
The response was no. You can't have $100,000. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'm sorry I asked. I know it was a big ask. She goes, no. Take all the money. Take the entire HELOC. Take everything we have and go save your brother.
That's an amazing woman right there.
And I went, seriously? Man, heart just burst on me at that moment. She goes, if he hadn't saved your life 15 years ago, I would not have had you for the last 15 years. I'm like, right on. I said, you know, this one is not a military sanctioned event. So this has a higher risk of me not coming home. And she goes, that's okay too. If you die saving your brother, that's what's meant to be. Fate, not choice.
That's incredible. I mean, I really, like, I can't imagine having a conversation like that with my wife. I don't think it would go over quite as well.
Yeah, she's amazing. She really is.
I think there'd be some expletives in that conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, so you find the money, and you put a team together? Is this an easy thing, a hard thing?
Yeah, so the money, I think, is secured. And we actually ended up getting funding through my friend Chad. He owned a nonprofit that helps veterans with PTSD. It's a faith-based thing. It's really, really cool, fucking nonprofit. And he says, I'll pass money through my nonprofit to you if you get donations. And I've got a donor who wants to give money to help this. I'm like, dude, I need to pay for this, I need to pay for that. I'll let you know. Can
you talk about the donor? I mean, I know you told me, but are you comfortable talking about who the donor was? I don't want to put you on the spot, so if that's not cool.
Well, there's some interesting donors when we get into it, but I'm like, all right, you can help me with that, that's cool. Now, how do I put my team together? What am I going to do? I'm still going to save Aziz. We're still working on the visas, trying to get that done. And then I get a phone call from a guy who worked for me for the government, another government agency. And there are two guys. One was Sean, and another guy I'll call Dave. And they call me up. Dave goes, hey, dude, I got this crazy thing. What are you doing for the Afghans? I'm like, well, I'm going to go over and get Aziz, my brother, you know. He goes, oh, cool. How would you like to save 3,000 to 5,000 orphans? And I said, who do I have to kill to save 3,000 to 5,000? I'm there, man. This is awesome. What am I doing? He goes, well, we got this deal made out. Sean sent this request to the ambassador from the UAE asking for 7 A380s, asking for this, asking for that. If we can fly in, grab all these children from the orphanages, we've identified where they are, and we can get them out, and we'll fly them to the UAE. And I wasn't even thinking. So if you're out there and you guys are thinking about this, you take freaking orphans from a country and you move them to another country, what is that called?
Child trafficking.
Human trafficking. I'm like, no, I'm Santa. I'm bringing freedom to little children. So what ended up happening, I'm like, yeah, so what do you need from me? They said, we need a politician to kiss the ring of the UAE and tell them we support this. I was told you can get us a politician. I'm like, in a bag maybe? I don't know politicians. Oh, I know a guy. So I called Chad. Chad was really big into the political scene. He was thinking of running for office himself. He was always on Fox News and this thing and that thing. And I'm like, and he was actually a Trump appointee for a faith-based program for, the military and the veterans. So I go, hey, can you help me with this? He goes, who do you want? Town councilman or Donald Trump? I said, can we settle somewhere in the middle? I don't think they're going to care about a town councilman. And I think they really wouldn't care about Donald Trump at this moment. He wasn't the favorite guy to be on helping. So he got a couple of politicians. We got on the phone conference that we thought was going to be with the ambassador. It wasn't. It was with his executive assistant. And when the politicians finished doing what politicians do, which is talk over one another and try to get their name up there first, the executive kind of laughed. The assistant laughed. Okay, I'll pass this on to the ambassador, and hung up. I'm like, well, that's a fucking waste of my hour. And I'm like, well, now what do we do? My friend Joe Robert, who was friends with the royal family, I tell him what happened. He goes, oh, well, the ambassador's in Europe on vacation. I just talked to him the other day. I'm like, okay. He goes, you want me to call him? So he calls him. He says, here's the situation. He goes, oh, yeah, I saw that on my desk, that request. We weren't going to approve that request. That was like, seriously? You want us to give you 7 A380 aircraft? No, that's not happening. Are you part of it? And Joe said, Dan, are we part of this? I'm like, yes, let's go save children. He goes, yeah, we're part of this. He goes, hold on, let me call MBZ. So he calls the government. And NBC says, if Joe Robert is involved in this, then we're doing it. Again, that's super cool. And Joe says, awesome, I'm going with you. Brotherhood. You're going with me? He goes, yeah, sure, why not? So we clear the decks. I'm talking to Aziz. He's running recons. He's trying to find everything for me. This happened on the 14th of August.
2021.
2021, okay. 14 August, we get secured in the aspect of, okay, I have some finances to my family, my wife, God bless her. And then Joe did his thing, Chad did his thing. I'm like, yep, I'm going to get Aziz. Well, Chad could not go into Afghanistan. He could not go into Pakistan. I don't give a hoot. I'll go in. Chad says, as soon as you get Aziz in Dubai, I'm coming over. I'm like, roger that, man, that's awesome. This is great. This is the greatest thing in the world. We're going to have our team here, our brotherhood together. We're going to have Aziz. Because the only thing I told those guys who wanted to save the children was, my one requirement, if I come over and do this and help you, is Aziz's family gets on the first aircraft. And they said, done and done. I'm like, rock on. So we made our flight arrangements, Joe and I, said goodbye to our significant others and wives. And I'm only kidding. And
you're not getting that HELOC money again after that comment.
No, never, never, which is probably a good thing, because who knows what stupid country I'll end up in. So due to COVID and everything else, COVID testing, and oh, you took this COVID test 15 minutes ago, it doesn't count anymore. So we had to move our tickets over. We ended up flying out on the 17th. August 15th, I'm in Virginia. Aziz is sending me reports, and Kabul falls. He was actually doing a route recon. He was in his car with some people. And he's like, brother, it's the end of the world. It's falling. I see the ministers running to the airport. Little did I know, someone else was running to the airport at that time, too.
I mean, he must be, I mean, try to set the tone, because I think it's very difficult living in a first world nation like Los Angeles and, you know, this country to appreciate when a country is falling, how bad it is. But I don't know if you can paint that picture, but maybe you can.
So I would say, based on my experience in Afghanistan and working against the Taliban and working with the people, which I love the people of Afghanistan, I truly do. And what they went through in the mid-90s when the Taliban took over, and the depravity, inhumanity. So World War II, right, they said afterwards what the Nazis did and other people did to human beings, they go, man, man's inhumanity to man. Right? How could people do some of the things they do? Well, that was World War II. So I was in Haiti, it was like that. I was in Southeast Asia, it was like that. I was Southwest Asia, it was like that. Every country I've been to, for some reason, people have this, evil people have a way to do evil things. And that's what the Afghans are looking at, because of their history of, like, drink the Pashtun soup, things like that. This is what's going to happen to us again. It's a total chaos. So the banks are closing. There's no food. There's no water.
And it's all about settling scores, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're scared shitless. They're going to die, especially the ones who work with us. They know they're going to die. Some have already been killed. The women who were judges, who put the Taliban in prison, they're gone. Educators, they're gone. People who worked in the palace, young ladies who were trying at the Kabul University or University of America, or American University, trying to get their degrees. No, women can't get educated. Wrap them up in a sheet, and that's it. Now, I got nothing against the religion of Islam at all. I have a problem with any religion that is fundamentalist to the extremes. And I don't believe that what they're practicing over there is the actual tenets of Islam. And that's me, and you guys can find.
That's another talk. That's the next talk.
Yeah, they can come find me.
So tell me about, first of all, I just think it's like, how do you decide who to save and who not to save, right? You probably have hundreds of thousands, if not, you know, a couple million people that are worthy. How do you decide, you know, is it the orphans? Is it Aziz and his family? Like, how do you make, your decision is life. It's the difference between life and death for somebody. That's an awesome decision.
Yeah. So these organizations started, non-governmental organizations started all over the place, like that. They just popped up. Some of them started and they rented office space or conference rooms, and they just started coming together with lists. Excel spreadsheets of people. Veterans were calling. I had general officers call me and say, can you get my interpreters out? They serve with us in these time. Here's their names and information. I'm like, right on, General. I'll put them on the list. And I'll put a star next to them because I know you and we'll get this done. Congressmen call me. People that worked in the Department of State called me and said, hey, can you get these people out for me? No, how about you get everybody out? Okay, I'll get your people out. So they put these lists together. These NGOs are back in their states. No One Left Behind. Save Our Allies was a loose coalition of just 4 people, and they were working on getting lists together. We asked the National Child Protection Task Force to come in because we have kids, right? So no one wants to human traffic children. Get these guys in and help us work with that. So all these task force, Argo, Task Force Pine, you get 2 vets together over a cup of coffee or a bourbon, they're going to come up with some stupid task force name, and then they're going to be making Excel spreadsheets, and then they ask all the mothers of America, and I love them, they're amazing, all the handlers, like the housewives of DC, and they all get together, they're like, yes, I'm going to save this person. And they were amazing, putting these lists together, getting me baseball cards, getting me sheets with names and pictures and everything else, all the information. I'm like, okay, it's 15 August, and I'm getting Excel spreadsheets, and I'm getting all these folders and binders of people that I'm supposed to rescue.
Hundreds and thousands. I mean, not 5 or 10, you know, just set the table here.
Thousands.
Yeah.
Thousands of names.
None of whom you know. The majority of whom you don't know.
Correct, majority I did not know. I knew who they work with, I looked at them, I'm like, oh. But they were vetted. And one of the things a lot of the organizations did is take it, turn it in, get it vetted. This person's not a terrorist, they're, you know, biometrics check out, et cetera, they're good to go. And we had a little code that we were like, we can evacuate these, we can't evacuate those, et cetera, et cetera. All right, cool. What am I doing? I'm in Virginia, it's August 15th, I don't even have a freaking aircraft yet, but I know when I get to the UAE, they're gonna give us 2 C-17s, the crews for them, an operations center, We're going to live in their officers' housing. They're going to take care of this. They're going to do medical for them, everything. The UAE is going to do it for Afghans. UAE. It costs $2 million a day to run that camp. $2 million a day that they paid to help Afghans. Pretty damn cool. So we have these lists. August 15 comes, the people are calling me, texting me, the whole bit, and this is interesting. I'm talking to Aziz nonstop to try and calm him down and keep him safe.
He's like, set the tone. He's freaking out.
He was a very valuable person that worked with us, and he would be a really good target for them to kill. They would probably kill his family first in front of him, in a really violent and vicious way, and then they would execute him in a really violent and vicious way. And I watched them. I've seen some of the results of some of the things they did, and it's just horrific. And so I had to get my brother out. I had to get his wife out. And I had to get his kids out. This was my goal. And so I'm like, all right, he's first. Talking to him, trying to keep him calm. And then somebody sends me this name and this picture of a young lady walking along the street. And the Taliban took this picture of this young girl. That's the picture. And if you can't read that, it says, "We will rape and kill you." So the Taliban took this picture as they were driving by her because they knew who she was, knew where she worked. She worked at the palace in a really important position. And they took that picture and they sent it to her via WhatsApp. And then somebody sent it to me and said, "Can you help this girl?" I'm like, "Help this girl? Someone needs to fly me and let me Halo jump in. I'll find the guys who did that and I'm going to kill them." No one threatens a woman. I'm just, it's, you know, that's horrific. Rape you and kill you? Seriously? I was wicked pissed. And I am in Virginia. Not much I can do. Well, come to find out, I get this girl's number and I start talking to her, texting her, WhatsApping her, blah, 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 blah. She's already made her way to the airport. Yeah? 3 days.
Can you describe what's going on at the airport? Because I've seen some video of it, but I'm not sure that most people have an understanding of the level of chaos. It's very much like the fall of Vietnam, right? I mean,
yeah.
Maybe you can just kind of set the tone, because it's insane what was going on there.
I seem to remember somebody saying we would never have a time when helicopters would fly off, and the next thing you know, helicopters would fly and evacuating people. Yet I digress. So the airport was a large area. It had the military side.
This is the Hamid Karzai.
Hamid Karzai International Airport, HKIA. So it had HKIA, right? So it had the military side and the civilian side. And the civilian side had the regular civilian airlines, offices, and things like that. And the military side was a little bit more fortified, and where all the military aircraft were usually parked. For some damn reason, in some agreement somewhere in some back room, they said, okay, we'll be on the military side, and you guys can have everything else. You guys being the Taliban.
And the U.S. government has the military side. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, we will not allow our military personnel to leave the boundaries of the military airport. They can't go outside.
So they can't help anybody. Even if it's an American citizen on the other side of the concertina wire being tortured by the Taliban, they cannot physically fire a shot or leave, otherwise
correct.
Something much worse happens.
There are a lot of them. There are hundreds of American citizens in Afghanistan that were on the other side that couldn't even get into the gate. Wow. Hundreds of them.
Blue passport holders.
American citizens.
Wow.
And green card holders as well. Some Afghans I met and I knew, they were actually American citizens and their family was over there and they all fell and they're like, I'm going back. And they went back to get their family and then they can't get out. Okay, that's fair, I guess. So military has the military side, the Taliban has the civilian side, and they surround the entire airport, the Taliban. And they take over the palace and they take over this. Wasn't there like really good pictures of them sitting there barefoot in the palace? The president of Afghanistan, he hayaked out of there and left in his helicopters. So that, again, defeated the people. Moral injury to the people is, are you going to save us as he helicopters away? Well, I guess not. We're all on our own now. Horrible feeling. We're on our own and evil is pressing on us. So that's the situation at the airport, right? The military are inside. They fought and took over the airfield and drove the Taliban out of the military side, and then they set up their perimeter.
So let's go back to the girl. So now you're talking to her on WhatsApp, and maybe set the tone of what's going on. She's in bad shape. She's not at home like with air conditioning. I mean, she's injured on a street corner, right? Is that correct?
No, that was a different girl. The first girl, this one here in this picture, this young lady makes her way to the civilian side of the airport, and in paraphrasing generalization, she makes her way to a Cam Air office. And she's hiding in the Cam Air office because the Taliban are coming after her. One, she's in law school. She works at the palace. She was a very important person in the palace. And she is a rights activist, women empowerment activist. You know, she's
enemy number one for them.
Yeah, she's amazing, right? So they're coming after her. So she's hiding there, and I'm talking to her, and she's telling me what's going on. I'm texting her, then I'm texting 50 people, I'm texting 100 people, I'm texting more and more and more people. And I keep telling this young lady, oh, it's going to be okay, you can be fine, I want you to do this. Do you have any water? No. Do you have any food? No. Okay, stay hidden. I am hiding, like, you stupid, you know? Don't tell me to stay hiding. And I talked to her for 3 days, texted her for 3 days, lying to her that I was going to keep her safe, that I was going to get her out. Because I didn't know I was going to do that. But I couldn't say, well, it sucks to be you, because I wanted to be there. There was a reason why I was going to go and help these people. It was fate. It was not choice. And it changed because my choice was to save just 8 people. Fate made me go over there, and then fate dropped this young lady in our lap. All right, cool. So I'm talking to her. Then there was another girl, Hudaybiya. She was trying to get to the airport, and she was frantic as well. She got thrown off a vehicle, and she's laying in the street up against the Jersey barrier.
Thrown off by the Taliban, threw her off. Right?
No, thrown off by the other people in the vehicle.
Got it.
Everyone was a panic.
Yeah.
And again, she's a college student, American University, the whole bit. So she's laying there, she's injured, she's bleeding, not bleeding up, but just bleeding, and she can't walk. So she's laying against the Jersey barrier in the sun, in between the Taliban and the American-British section. Mm-hmm. So when the people would get in there, they're almost stomping on her. Brits would come out, coalition forces would come out to drive the crowd back, and they're firing rubber batons into the crowd. The Taliban is just taking pot shots into the crowd and shooting people. And this girl's laying there. My brother Aziz, I'm like, Aziz, you have to go get this young lady for me. Oh, brother, I'm trying. And he was. But he also had his entire family. I'm like, can you get her some water? Brother, I can't. The crowd, the Taliban's shooting at me. The U.S. military's shooting at me. I can't. Oh, can you just, he goes, yeah. So he's throwing bottles of water to her to keep her hydrated and alive.
And she's essentially out in the desert. I mean, this is not, she's not in...
Well, it's Kabul.
So, but what's the temperature? Is it 90s, 100? I mean, you need a certain amount of water to survive.
Yes. You can't go very long. I mean, you're laying it. It's August in Afghanistan.
And she's injured.
Hot. She is injured, yeah. She couldn't walk because of her injuries. So she's laying there, talking to her, talking to Aziz. I'm talking, and I'll focus on these 3 people, although there were thousands. And I'm talking to the young lady who's hiding in Cam Air, this girl. There's something about this girl that just grabbed my heart. This girl being the one in the airport. Something just, I connected with her. That was the first girl I was talking.
Was it her voice or the desperation? I mean, what was it?
And that message right there really resonated with me. How dare you? This is the depravity of them. And my job, my whole life is to defend, to be a protector. And I couldn't protect her. I couldn't defend. I thought of my own children, my own daughter, my granddaughter. One of my granddaughters was actually living with us at the time, so she was my other daughter.
I just want to say something. I bet it's not really fun dating your daughters. Like, just being around you for a little bit. I'd be very nervous to date your female offspring.
Yeah, that's a good move on your part. Wood chippers are amazing.
Yeah, I bet you're good at disposing of bodies. I bet you learned a couple.
Well, somebody told me once, you can bury a lot of parts on 35 acres.
I'm sorry. Go on with the.
Yeah, so I'm talking to this young lady, and yeah, there's this connection that happened. I relate to my wife. I relate to this. I relate to all these things. But how could somebody say they're going to do that to a woman? Not that women are the weak, and they need to be protected, but that's what I am. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to protect, right? So I got to save this girl. I got to help her. And we finally make it overseas. Finally get there. And I'm trying to talk, and there's some special operations guys I'm trying to get a hold of. And Sean finally gives me their contact information. And without talking to them, I'm not going to say who they are right now. I'm not going to divulge all that, but there were some special operations guys over there. Solid men. The best of the best type guys. And I finally get the information. I'm like, hey, there's this girl. I send that picture. There's this girl, blah, blah, blah. Can you go help her? And they're like, dude, we're not allowed to go outside. We're trying to do everything we can here to keep stability here. We'll do what we can. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, thanks. And I asked her to drop a pin. I asked the girl to drop a pin on WhatsApp. Where are you? So she drops a pin on the map. I go, okay. I'm trying to get an hour of sleep because we were not sleeping for days. My phone rings. I pick up my phone. I'm like, I don't know this number. Afghan number. I don't know this number. So I answer it. And it's this girl. And she tells me, somebody ratted her out, and they're coming to get her. Please save me. Okay, I'm an asshole because I've been promising I was going to save this girl. And now someone's coming to take this girl, and I'm helpless. Fucking helpless. I text the guys, you have to go now. Have to go now. So like in a TV show or a movie, the leader steps aside from his guys and he says, I'm going, and I can't order you to go, but I'm going. Who's coming with me? Right? It's important. Who's going to come with me? Who do I send, right? So 3 guys step across with them, and they say, we're going. They sneak out into enemy territory. They go to this place I told them to go, and they text me, she's not here. Look around. Like, yeah, we're looking around, she's not here. I'm like, please, and I'm praying, just find a body for me. Just find her body, just so I can have some closure, and then bring her back to the camp. One of the guys looks out, it's a second-story office building, if you will. They were on the second floor. And this one young man, great guy, looks out and he sees this young lady, this girl being dragged away by the Taliban in full kit with weapon. He does a DC comic through the window, shoulder roll, comes up, guns up. The other guys jump out with him and they have a confrontation. No shots are fired, and they convince the Taliban to let that young lady go. I don't normally chew my nails. Man, I was chewing my nails. I was pacing the floor. I don't know what's going on. I'm not there. Again, this is not me. I'm usually in the midst of stupid shit, and I'm on the phone in a hotel going, what's going on? What's going on? I get a text message, and it's this young lady flashing me a peace symbol in between these 2 guys. And she's like, I'm safe. They got me. I love you. I'm like, I love you too. Oh, shit, don't tell my wife I said I love you. It's not like that. She goes, I know. I'm like, okay, cool. Man, I was so happy. I did something I have not done except for when someone really close to me gets killed or dies. I became emotional. I sat down on the bed. I contemplated what was going on. And I realized in 40 years of my life, for the government, for the military, all these third world shitholes I've been to, these conflict zones, these war zones, counter drug missions, counter kidnapping missions in Colombia, all these places I've been, all I've done is hurt people. I've gone there to kill them. I've gone there to hurt them. I've gone there to set them up to be hurt or killed. 40 years of that. That's my life. And before that, as a biker, not for nothing, we fought a lot, and we probably hurt a lot of people in my life. That's why I wanted to change it, right? This is the first time in 40 years that I've deployed overseas somewhere with one intent to help one guy and his family, and I ended up saving this little girl. I was emotional. I told my wife, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. We're going to move to the Middle East. I'm going to set up here, and I'm going to work through Southwest, Southeast Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. And all I want to do is help Christians who are being murdered by evil.
And she said, no more money for you, buddy.
She said, okay.
Good woman.
She said, okay.
So you got Aziz out, right? Because we got to kind of wrap this up, and I do have a couple of questions. But Aziz, what happened to Aziz?
So we get the first C-17 in, and Sean takes it in, and this girl is actually talking with Aziz. And this girl, because these guys now loved this young lady, she says, you got to go get Aziz too. So she tells him. The guys go and they grab Aziz. Okay, cool. And Aziz like, brother, I get the text, brother, they got me, I'm safe, thank you so much. I'm like, yeah, cool. Hey, there's one more thing I need you to do. Anything, brother. And that was in Aziz. Anything, brother. What do you want me to do? I'm like, you know that girl who's laying in the sun? He goes, yeah. I'm like, go get her. No, brother, please, my family, please. And he was, emotionally, mentally stressed. I'm like, yeah, my family. I'm like, well, that's cool. So your family will get out. But if you don't do this, brother, I will tell those guys you're not getting on the plane. The Aziz sigh, like, son of a bitch. Okay, brother. And I get like within an hour, I get a thing from Aziz saying, brother, they got me. And they got his family and Aziz out. And he goes, and I have Hudaybiyah. And he picked up that girl, and they brought her back too.
And at the end,
that's not Hudaybiyah.
At the end of the day, it was upwards of 15,000 people, right, or 12,000. It was a phenomenal number of people that you and your group allowed to live and to create families and to have.
It was
history.
15,000. August ended. The guys that we were working with, they got out of there before the bombing went off, and we got our last C-17 out. We were also flying Nazarene Group. Glenn Beck had raised $40 million, so he's flying charter aircraft. Mm-hmm. People like, and this is how I ended up meeting Brad Parks. He was looking for Santa6 and the Black Feather Group, my company. Like, who is this Santa6 guy, right? He was getting people out. If you go back one picture, on the same plane, C-17, C-17s are big. You fit like 800 people in that, and they're expensive to fly. The first C-17 had 20 people get on the plane, 20. And when it landed, it had 22 people. That's amazing, right? It's not even a 9-month gestation. But what happened was this woman, she had hid her 2 infant children and covered them with a wrap when they did a manifest to get on board. And then coming off, they're like, head count, 22? How did that happen? So we flew a multi-million-dollar aircraft, and it probably cost about $1 million to fly it for 22 people. 22. That guy there, Saber, is a friend of Mr. Parks, and funny enough, his family was on the plane with Aziz. I don't find that out until later, like last year, last year, 2022, we're having dinner, and this guy comes to my house for dinner, and he tells his story about how his family got out on the first C-17 in Abu Dhabi. I'm like, hold on a second. Did they have 20 people that became 22 people? He goes, yes. I'm like, son of a bitch. Small world in the evac community, and we got him out too, or got his family out. So yeah, Aziz got out. He's in Abu Dhabi. We started bringing people in. We're being inoculated, MMR, COVID, quarantining them, all the medical stuff. And Aziz, because he's Aziz and my warlord, him and his children started working for us. And Aziz became the mayor of Abu Dhabi, which people will be like, oh, that's so cool. But it is so cool until you get death threats from 12,000 people. Because as a plane leaves and there's Afghans leaving on the plane, they all turn to Aziz and go, so why didn't you get me out?
That's a tough situation.
Yeah.
I gotta wrap up, but sure. I have a couple last minute questions. And one is, I want you to just kind of talk about living in the gray.
Cool. So my life has been a combination of like living in the darkness and then the light. Right, I was going to blow my brains out. Mm-hmm. Not a cool place to be in my life. I hurt a lot of people. Not a real cool place. That's kind of the dark side. And then certain things move me into the light. My whole 40-year career was somewhere in the middle of that, somewhere where I was really doing bad stuff or doing good stuff. So I was living in the gray that entire time. And not being well known. There's not very many pictures of me out there.
Yeah, I know. I looked.
Yeah.
There's like hardly any Santa6 out there. It's really funny. So it's kind of an awkward last question, but I have to ask you. So someone who's been living so close to death so many times has probably learned a lot about life and what a treasure it is.
Yeah.
And I just have to think that in those moments of extreme danger, firefights, there's incredible lessons that you've taken away. And I would love to just be able to kind of share one or two of those that you're willing to speak about.
I could do that. So in addition to all that other stuff, and then my last official trip in Afghanistan was 2015. I did some time over there. And right after that, I got diagnosed with cancer. That was shocking. I didn't plan for that one. And that was a opportunity to die that I wasn't particularly okay with. I didn't prep myself. I used to do this thing in Afghanistan, right? This kind of rolls into your question. I used to do this thing where every morning or night when I got up to do my job, I would thank God for my sleep, and I would make my peace to die. And I would text or call my wife, and I would resign myself that today I died. And I got total inner peace. And today I die. I'm good with that. I had no fear of dying. At night, or in the day, whenever I came back, if I lived through the day, I would pray to God, and I would thank him for an awesome day, and I did some wicked cool shit, and I didn't die. Thanks. And I'd do it every single day. And that led me to like, no, it's not special. There's no here. I don't recommend it for everybody. It worked for me. I just gave myself to die every day, and I lived through it. So what I learned from all these stupid life and death situations I put myself in, material things don't mean squat. What really means something to me is when I could pick up a child, my children or another kid, and they give you that hug, little arms around you, like, oh. And I was gone, not for nothing, from 2002 until 2007, 85% of every year away from my wife and our son. That's pretty hard. And I became a cold, heartless bastard because I just wanted to go back into the fight. I wanted to be there. I was the only one that could do it. So for me, with lessons I learned, hug your children, hug your wife. I always say that I love my wife. Every time I leave her, I say I love my brothers. Every time I leave them, because I never know 1 minute to the next if that's going to be the last minute that I live or they live. So there was that the touch of someone special to you, a look from them when they smile at you is the most important thing. So love your family, love your children, love your significant others. Enjoy those moments when they hug you, when they hold you. And live your life the best you can, because it's nothing but, this is fun. This is cool shit, this life. This is really awesome. I enjoy every moment of my life, even when people are trying to kill me. It's because it's exciting as hell, man. It's like, well, that never happened. And my wife could tell you, I used to keep a Crown Royal bag, you know, the little purple crown. So every time somebody shot at me, or RPGs, or IED went off, or a car blew up, I'd pick up pieces. And I'm like, fuck you. And I'd put it in the bag. You didn't get me that time. And I'd come home and I'd set it up on my bookshelf at home. I'm like, heh, heh. And I could tick them off like that. It didn't kill me. One of those days I was going to die, but I was good with that too, because every single day I lived my life the best I could at that moment, helped as many people as I could at that moment. This 15,000 people that we got to facilitate, I didn't save them. There's no single human being can say, I saved 15,000 people. My ass. Unless you were like God Almighty, where you could reach down, or Moses, I guess he spread some water and people saved, right? But none of us are that. I facilitated, I helped with an unbelievable team of people to get 15,000 people safe and save 15,000. Like, you know how many people that it touched? So Aziz has 6 children. Are they going to get married and have children? Did I improve their lives? And did I'll say I. Did it improve their lives? And are they going to be different? That young girl, can I have a drink, please?
And this is not just a drink that's being served. This is a very important person that is serving this drink.
So, thank you, baby. This is Aria. Aria lives with us. She's our other daughter. She finishes law school this semester, and then she's going to Georgetown. And to this day, Aria, when she makes $1, she sends $1.50 to Afghanistan to help Afghans.
Wow.
This is Aria. She's my love.
Well, Daniel Stinson, or better, Santa6, thank you for an amazing talk. I want to say for our viewers at home, get off your asses, get off the couch, and come down to the Adventures Club. It's a really fun place. We have an amazing museum. We have incredible people like Santa6. The adventure spirit lives on here. Our amazing three-course dinner, our chef Milton, who makes us an amazing dinner and preps us for an incredible speech. I'd like to thank Phoebe Piper, who runs our AV and just does a terrific job. And as a final salute, I'd just like to say, this is really, I've done probably 1,000 interviews in my life, and this is in the top 5 of the most interesting, the most powerful. And I was sharing with a couple of people that the first couple of times I spoke with you, I kind of had to get up and just walk out a couple of times because it was so hard to hear.
Yeah.
Boring you are not, I can tell you a lot. So Daniel Stinson, thank you so much.
Thank you. That one, just Aziz. My brother Aziz.
Aziz. Come on up. Aziz, come on up. Come on up.
Aria. Thank you, Maria. Right here, my bigger family. Thank you, brother. Thank you, darling. Thank you, Adventures Club. Great shit.
Rich, you want to? We got a little award for you, so just stand by.
Roger.
Can we wrap up the show?